Let's go. How we doing? Great.
Actually proved you right yesterday.
Yeah.
Settling down, things were settling, you expected things to settle down.
Well, here's what I know. The truth is usually somewhere in between in most things. Never too high, never too low. It's not quite what people want. Everyone loves the extremes. Terrible, great. But the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. But anyway, he did a nice job in the game. Obviously, happy with what he did. We got a chance to kick a couple of field goals. I know one of them was above 50, which we can't kick. But not saying it is. No, I know you didn't say that. You just said we had a guy on the roster who couldn't kick, 50-yarder. But no, all fun. For real, I mean that. No, yeah, he did a good job in the game with the kicks, and that's been good. And we obviously need to continue that trend going forward for sure. And I would say there's a lot left. I mean, let's not jump on the bandwagon too early one way or the other. We'll just continue to keep working hard and trying to improve and see where it goes from there.
And I think sight unseen. Obviously, you had the game footage from Chicago the week before, but in the 3 weeks he's been on the roster, what have you learned about Michael?
Yeah, I would say he's got – I love his personality because I think half the times I'm talking to him, he's kind of like, okay, I've heard from a million of you coaches, I'm good. And I really like that about a guy. So he's got kind of a confidence that way that he knows who he is. The other thing I would say is just that. He knows exactly who he is. He doesn't try to be somebody different. He knows what his leg is. He hits the same ball over and over. He's very consistent. And he's comfortable with who he is. And I think that gives him an advantage. So he's been great to be around. I really enjoy the guy.
Sometimes a tough situation when you got a guy that comes in and he's had a lot of coaches before and he's heard a lot before, and like how do you go about, and maybe not his specific case, but I guess just in general?
Yeah, I would say it probably depends more on the position the guy's playing. Like kicker, especially just field goals. I mean, you're kicking the ball through the uprights. We're doing the exact same thing he's doing here for everybody else. For the most part, or 99% of it. If you were talking about a positional player who's more of a core player, I would say, yeah, things could be a lot different. What I want from him, what another coach wants from him might be more different. But for a kicker, it's pretty much the same. So not too hard for him.
Did you have one of the best punters in the league locked in through 2026?
Yeah, fired up about that. Obviously, congrats to Fox. He's a great player, and he can do a lot. He threatens the field in a lot of different ways, not only with his leg but also his arm. He's a great young talent. He works really hard at it. The game's important to him, and he's really fun to be around too. He's very competitive, and I know he'll just continue to get better and better. So obviously, we're fortunate to have him. I know that.
For Brad, but since he doesn't talk all these times, I'm sure there's some NFL rules as to why this is going to. But Maurice Alexander, why you bring him up and cut him, bring him up and cut him, rather than just promote him from the practice squad? Do you?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's probably a better question for him. The only thing I would add, which I think everyone would be fine with, I think there's a limitation of 3 times you could come up on the practice squad. So if you have a chance to bring the guy up on the active roster, then it's still keeps those other 3 opportunities out there for a guy. I don't know, but other than that, I'm not really sure.
Is there a limit to the number of practice squad guys you can promote at all, too? You know what I mean, like 50 over the course of the season?
The way I understand it is anybody on the practice squad can come up, but he can only come up for a total of 3 times throughout the year before you'd have to do something else with him. Yeah.
Tough loss with Bobby Price. Obviously, I think he was leading you in snap counts at the time of his injury. How convenient is it, I guess, to go out and be able to get a guy like C.J. Moore, who's done it for this organization for a long stretch here?
Yeah, I would say for me, great to have CJ back. I love the guy. He was a great player for us a year ago. He's a great person to be around. He brings a lot of energy to whatever, the huddle that he's in or the field or the meeting room. He's obviously very knowledgeable, but he also has a great skill set. I mean, he can run. He's great in coverage. He's really good in the return game. He's competitive. We hate losing Bobby, obviously. I talked to him yesterday. It's heartbreaking, obviously, but definitely great to get CJ back.
The 50-yard field goal thing, but obviously you weren't necessarily comfortable in trying him out from that far against New England, which you were last week. So just kind of curious, was that a matter of getting to know him better? Was that field conditions? What kind of went into that?
Yeah, no, I would say a very good question because I made light of it, but it's really not a light situation. I would say that really what goes into those decisions is a lot. Number one, it's easier when you're indoors and the conditions don't affect it. Obviously in that game, I know I mentioned it a week ago, but there was a wind going into that game. There's one side that's more difficult than the other, and we were kicking into that side in that game if you look at the uprights historically. But then I would say there's also nowadays there's more than ever with all the analytics and do we punt it, do we go for it, or do we kick the field goal? The field goal is worth 3 points. We go for it. We got a chance to still score 6 or 7 or 8, depending on what you do after the score. So there's that whole expected points thing. And then the down and distance plays into that because the odds of going for it and converting change based off the down and distance. And then there's the whole who are we playing, who are we playing, who are we on offense, who are they on defense, is it a run play that we like? Well, not for 4 yards or more, but 2 yards or more, yes. Is there a pass play? You know what I mean? But so I would say just in general that thing has turned into, even from my time starting in it used to be basically like you feel like the kicker's going to make this kick, yes or no. Yes, okay, we're kicking. No, we're not. And I would say that thing's really turned a lot of different ways. And then not to add on to it, if you miss the kick, you're giving them 8 yards of field position. What's that worth? So there's a lot that goes into that now. I would say there is no one line to get, I don't think, for any given week, And then some of that adjusts based off how you feel about the guy in the pregame warm-up. Like last week, Badgley was kicking the ball great in the pregame, looked great, and kicking it both ways. He took one shot with the ball on the 40-yard line each way, so 58-yarder, and looked good doing that. And so you felt confident in him. He felt good. So that affects the decision a little bit too. So I'd say there's a lot to it. Not to make it more than it is, but it's not quite that easy.
See, they have a ton of speed on offense, obviously, at the receiver position. I know those guys aren't necessarily their primary returners, but just how are their special teams at speed still?
At Miami?
Yeah,
these guys got a boatload of players. No, they got a lot of speed. They got a bunch of speed at their gunner's position, a bunch of speed at their corner position, and then they have all these returners, Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Holland, number 8, and number 11 went back there last week. These guys are as talented in the return game as anybody we face, and haven't necessarily gotten a lot of opportunities for a lot of returns yet. But obviously, that's a part of the game going into this one that we're highly aware of, and we have to perform better. In the Dallas game, we gave up that return, so we got to perform better than that for sure. I would say Tyreek, what it looks like to me, and I can't really answer the question for them, but what it looks like to me is if they feel like it's a situation in the game where they can maybe double a gunner and they can really set up a return. So what would that situation be based off of? Like down, distance, field position, score on the clock. But a situation where they think they can get a return, then he likes to get back there and go. So I'm sure we'll see him back there. It should be fun. I think it'll be a good challenge for us because at the end of the day, we need to improve from where we were a week ago in that phase. And I need to do a better job. I would say, what happened on that, really I didn't do a good enough job preparing them in the last game. So we get an opportunity to go see if we got it fixed this week.
Just wondering your assessment of Chase Lucas's development as he's starting to see more playing time on special teams.
Yeah, it's good. It was good to have him out there. He obviously got nicked up in that game at the end of it. But it's definitely good to have him out there. I think he is developing. He's a young player. He's got a lot of room for improvement still. But the one thing I would say about him, as a coach, he's going to give you everything he's got, and he's going to do the right thing, which I know that sounds like, well, that should be all of them, but it's not that way necessarily. So he's very dependable that way, and then it just comes down to, can he win that matchup from a physical, competitive standpoint.